Thank you so much, Heather. And again, as Heather mentioned, we'll be exploring the use of AI for content strategy and creation in mission-driven organizations, and offering practical strategies for leveraging the technology to enhance efficiency while staying true to your organization's values and communicating with authenticity and integrity. So, as Heather mentioned, I'm Johnson Novara, content strategist, copywriter, and content creator. Here's my email and website and everything. Feel free to take a screenshot so you can reach out to me, connect with me later. I have lived and worked on 3 continents, and now I feel like I'm navigating another world with the whole advent of AI in marketing. So I'm doing my best to learn as much as I can about it and help other people learn how to use it in the best way, while also staying true to your values and ethics. So I asked Mary Kate to put a poll together for us today, because I'd like to know where you all are in your experience with AI. So I'm sure we've got a mix of folks here today, but if you could just let us know if you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, and no answer is incorrect. So I just want to see who's in the audience today.
Looks like we've got a lot of people who are beginners and a few who are intermediate and advanced.
All right. Thank you so much, folks, for sharing that. So this will hopefully help you get started on the right foot. And for those of you who are advanced, just kind of tweak things as you go. Let's dive right in. Actually, I can't seem to get off the poll. Let's see. There we go. Okay, I'm having technological difficulties. For some reason, my screen share says it's paused.
Mary Kay, is there anything you can do to help us with that?
I apologize, folks.
It actually says you are screen sharing, Julie. I'm not sure what's the deal.
Well, should I just continue?
Why don't you post your presentation in the chat? I'd be happy to run it for you.
Okay.
Unless you have another suggestion, Mary Kay.
Not really.
Okay.
Okay, let me try one more time.
It says you're sharing, Julie. I'm not sure what's happened.
Oh.
There, it's up.
There we go. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Oh, there we go. Now we'll dive in. All right. So the world of AI is a bit like the Wild West. A lot of people are comparing it to the Wild West because back in those days, so much was happening and there were not a lot of rules or regulations in place yet, and you just never knew what was going to happen. And AI is a little bit like that, where there's so much innovation, so many startups popping up, so much happening. And experts, even those who are saying, they've got their finger on the pulse of everything that's going on, they still don't know exactly how things are going to play out. In a year from now, or 2 years, or 10 years from now, what it will all look like. And that can feel a little bit scary, but it doesn't have to. We've had lots and lots of technologies that these will be familiar with you that have come into play through the years, and they've been disruptive as well. They changed how we lived and worked. They took some jobs and created other jobs. The car was certainly revolutionary a long time ago, and now we have electric cars, which are even more revolutionary. So, we're used to having disruptive technologies come into our world and change things. To the youngest of our generations, these things will all be a normal part of life and work. And yes, they will change how we live and work. AI will disrupt some jobs, may even take some jobs, but it will also create other jobs, and we'll get used to it. For the moment, though, we do have, there are concerns. And so with the use of AI and how to implement it. And so today we're going to talk more about those concerns first before we talk about how to use it well. Several weeks ago, I asked a small group of faith leaders what they were most concerned about when talking about AI. And they had the most concerns about theology and AI. And so what they shared with me was they're not comfortable with AI as a primary resource. So ChatGPT, and there are Bible-specific AI tools as well, they can easily quote scripture accurately, but let's not rely on those tools as our primary theological resource. Another thing the faith leaders mentioned was the need for fact checking, and we'll talk about this a bit more in general as we go through our time today. But I did ask ChatGPT what some scriptures about love were, and it came up with verses in 1 Corinthians 13 and some in the Gospels, and those were accurate. The results that came out were accurate, but it's really important to always double check, because generative AI tools have a bit of a reputation for not getting information exactly right. And so we want to always make sure that we're fact checking whatever results we're getting. The third thing the faith leaders mentioned as one of their main concerns was the need for discernment, knowing the word for ourselves, because the word is the source of truth. And just like with any other resource that we would use, that someone recommends to us related to our theology, it's really important that we still go back to the word, always go back to scripture. So that's no different when using AI. So I wanted to start there today because these are all valid concerns when we're talking about sharing theological perspectives in the content that our organizations produce. We want to be sure we're using technology simply as the tool that it is. So my position is that we can stay true to our theology and our mission and still find ways to leverage the use of AI for more efficiency in content strategy and creation, and even for better use of the resources that God has given us. So before we dive in a little bit more to some of the ways that we can get tripped up with AI technology, let me ask you, and Heather's going to help me field the questions or the comments in the chat. Did these concerns resonate with you at all? If they did, you can just put a yes in the chat.
Okay, we've got mostly yeses, a no, and a not really, moderately, but mostly yeses. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
A couple people that are kind of on the fence, not really or slightly.
Okay. And so what other concerns maybe came up for you? If these were not concerns, are there any other concerns? You can just type those quickly in the chat.
Okay, we have somebody saying plagiarism, honoring our mission's human-centric focus.
Very
My
good.
main concerns are related to people not embracing the uses that we can use, laziness, others using AI AI for their ideas, not original thought. People are
Great.
too afraid to change. AI will interpret the scriptures for us. I agree with your summary statement, seeing AI as a tool. Theological bias, losing my voice while using AI too much.
Good. Those are all great. Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to hit on some of those. We might not hit all of those, but we will hit on some of those as we talk today. I divided the main concerns, and some of what you just mentioned really fit in these categories as legal issues, privacy issues, and compliance issues. So let's start with the legal. They all kind of go together, but starting with the legal, in the news this week, in fact, there's a story of Forbes sending a letter to the CEO of the AI search startup Perplexity, which is has really taken off as a resource for doing research and being a bit more accurate than ChatGPT because it actually gives you the sources. But Forbes is saying that it actually ripped off some content in a willful infringement of copyright rights. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Perplexity is at this point not necessarily in full agreement that they took that without giving any credit. So I don't know how that will play out, but that's one legal issue. And I think someone mentioned something like that in the comment a minute ago. There's also the story of an employer who used AI to draft a letter of reprimand and included too much personal information in the information that was input. And as far as I understood it, there was a lawsuit related to that, but I don't know how that, I wasn't able to find out how that played out either. And then in 2022, the National Eating Disorders Association decided to lay off actually the folks responding to the hotline and let a chat bot respond instead. And it turns out that the chat bot gave a lot of bad information out. So those are all legal issues that come into play. And it's really important to be aware of those issues as you start to incorporate AI into your workflows. The privacy piece goes along with that. It's really important not to input anyone's private information because it's not necessarily safeguarded in AI tools. Some of the tools that are available do have higher tiers of, so they're like, membership, where at the lower level of memberships, you get one level of service. And then at higher levels, there is an opt-out possibility where you can say, I don't want any information that I input to be used to train AI models. But as far as I know, many of the free or low cost options don't have that opt out. So you want to definitely be careful that you're not inputting private information into AI tools. And ChatGPT being one of the most popular, I use it in these examples a lot. So it does say that it doesn't retain the information you put in exactly, but because it's using the information to train its models, it could possibly, that information could pop up later when someone asks for an output. It could get the private information. So the privacy issues are also very important to recognize and be aware of so that you're not putting information in that just shouldn't be public. And then along with that is compliance. That all kind of comes in together where you may or may not be in a position in your organization to know all the financial and HR and other regulations that you need to adhere to. But your organizational leaders would know that if you're not in a position to, and it's really important to keep in compliance, even when you're using the use of AI in your marketing and in other areas. So to handle these issues, Forbes Tech Council recommends putting a team in place to set clear standards for using generative AI and also staying true to best practices for protecting data. And that's, the data of your team members, staff, donors, participants, volunteers, everyone involved. And Forbes, the team that Forbes Tech Council recommends is legal counsel, of course, a lawyer, a data protection officer, data management and security experts, and IT personnel. And if your organization is small, you may be thinking, well, we don't have all those people in place, and that's okay. Just know that this is a model that it's a place to start. So if a lawyer is the only person that you consult, you can consult a lawyer. So just keep this in mind, that as organizations grow, as organizations incorporate AI, it's good to have all of these things in place, or at least be consulting with all of these kinds of people, so that you're staying in the ethical lines in terms of legally, with privacy issues and with compliance for your organization. So we're going to talk about what we can do with AI to help us with content strategy and creation. But before we explore that, even, I also want to touch on what someone mentioned when you put your comments in the chat, that there are some things that AI to this point cannot do. And foundationally, I should say, is the human connection. So for the moment, at least, experts agree that AI cannot create authentic, emotional human connection. Those connections are made by your team members when they're functioning in their creative strengths, when we're talking about marketing, content, and strategy. So AI can also not tell your organization's stories the way you tell them. So with that emotional human connection that we all tell stories with. So storytelling is never going out of style. The way we tell stories may change, the platforms we use may change, but storytelling itself is not going out of style. And your team members will always tell your stories, your true stories, better than AI will. So I want us to keep that in mind as we're going forward to talk about things that we can do with AI. So the question always comes up then, should we even use AI to generate content? And I give credit to Andy Crestodina at Orbit Media for this chart. He says, it depends on the goal of the content. So, and he breaks it out into commodity content versus thought leadership content. So commodity content being content that's going to meet a requirement or satisfy an algorithm. You need it to be quality, but at scale. And good examples are meta descriptions, alt tags on the back of your photos, meta descriptions at the back end of your website, summaries of information. These are things that AI can actually generate really quickly and do a good job with them. So you don't have to have humans to write those, because AI can do a good job with it. The thought leadership, on the other hand, that's the human connection piece. So when you're trying to connect with people emotionally in a way that creates impact, in a way that's memorable, that needs to be quality and humanity together. And examples of that is insights, perspectives, opinions, stories. You can use AI for research, but AI can't write those kind of things the way humans can. And really, it's your organization's values, perspectives, the specific ways that you meet a fundamental need for your audience. That human element is so important to effective marketing content. So whether or not it's your audience's desire to reach the unreached, to help underserved populations, help people get clean water or education, you offer something they can't do on their own, and you communicate about that in a way that AI cannot. So for content that's intended to connect with a human audience, let's let humans create that. Another aspect of the idea of humans creating content for humans is, and again, someone I believe mentioned this, that writing is thinking, and thinking paves the way for creativity. So a good rule of thumb is to continue allowing your team members to function in their creative strengths. If you have strong creative brainstormers who are always coming up with powerful ideas, then there's no reason to let AI do the brainstorming for you, because you've got powerful brainstormers and you've got ideas and creativity really flourishing. And the same with writing. You don't want to use AI to replace writers who are creative and connecting with your audience and that kind of thing. So far I've said, be careful about this, don't do that. So let's now look at ways that you can use AI. How can it help you? I like to call AI my writer's assistant. So these are 5 ways that you can incorporate AI into your marketing in a way that keeps you really in line with best practices and not crossing over any ethical edge. So one thing is definitely with your strategy and with planning your content. So you can use it to research your organization's ideal audiences, the desires of those audiences, the solutions your organization provides for those audiences, without divulging any, private or confidential information. You can put as much input as you can about your organization and get a response that's appropriate. And then use that information to come up with ideas for content that speaks to your ideal audience. Implement the strategy and then come back and input again to see how you can revise it. So those are ways that you can use it for strategy purposes. A couple of ways that I use it in my own strategy is what I just mentioned. I use it to help me think of the pain points for my ideal clients, the things that they're looking for when they come to me for services, the benefits that they get from working with someone like me. So I use it in all of those, looking and researching those kind of things to help create content that then speaks to those folks. I also use it to transcribe, and I've been doing this for quite a while. Anytime I'm interviewing someone, whether that's a client that I'm helping them with website copy to redo their copy, or an interview for an article I'm putting together. I use AI for the transcription, and it's very fast and efficient. It's not a perfect transcription, but it does the job pretty well. So those are ways that, well, let me share one more thing about strategy. Another good way to use AI is, I was working with a client who wanted information from people who are referring business to him. And he wanted to be able to speak to them better with the content that he was creating, his team was creating. And so I did interviews. Those I needed to do myself. I did the interviews. I had AI transcribe the interviews. And then I used Chat GPT to help me summarize and analyze the interviews. So I took out the personally identifiable information and I put the transcriptions in and asked for a summary of each one. And I asked for the main idea. So what were the themes that were recurring in all of the interviews? So those are the kind of things that you can use AI for without crossing any, running into ethical problems. For strategy, that's for strategy. A second way is through personalization of content. And I know we've all experienced this when with things like Spotify, when it creates a potential playlist for us because it's been paying attention to what we're listening to and searching for. And so then it will create playlists. So that's an example of personalization. you can do that as well. You may not have the tools that Spotify has necessarily, but you can look at the visits to your website, who's visiting your website, what pages they're visiting, how long they're staying, those kind of things. And the engagement that you're getting on social media, the analytics on your e-newsletter. You can use the data from those analytics to help you create more content that's more personalized for your different audiences. So AI is really data driven. So the more data you have, then the more personalized you can make the content that you create. A third thing is predictive analysis, which again, it's also data driven. It's exactly what it sounds like when you're using data to make predictions. So this could be analyzing donor data, for example, and predicting giving patterns to create more targeted fundraising campaigns. You could possibly predict future collaborations with sponsors or other ways that your organization collaborates based on who's collaborated with you in the past. And so you can do all that kind of analysis by, with people doing it, looking at the past data and making predictions, but you can also use AI to do it a bit quicker. So those are some ways that you can use data to make better informed decisions based on behavior in the past that you see. You can predict behavior in the future. A fourth way you can use AI in your marketing is for automation. So if you think about your work processes, what are some things that are time consuming and repetitive? Maybe even there are tasks that kind of create a bottleneck. So you can't get this process done because something is holding it up. Is that something that's repetitive and time consuming? And could an AI tool help you automate that so that your process moved along smoother? That's the way you want to think about that. Think about your processes. Good tasks for AI automation are time consuming and extremely repetitive tasks. Finally, repurposing content. This is a very easy access to AI if you're brand new at it and you're not sure where to really start. This is a good place to start because you don't have to worry as much about the privacy concerns in repurposing content, because you're just using content that you've already created and that's public, let's say a blog post or a newsletter, and you're using AI to help break it down into different parts and pieces to share on different platforms. So, for example, you could summarize some information on your website to then put in your newsletter, or you could turn a blog post into social media post, lots of different social media posts, or newsletter article. You can rewrite a social media post from LinkedIn, for example, into a video script for a TikTok video. So there's lots and lots and lots of ways to repurpose content you've created so you can use it over and over and over again. You can also use it easily to edit and revise. So when you're moving content from one place to the next, you can use the tools to edit and revise it for each platform. So those are 5 ways that you can use AI effectively in content strategy and content creation. Are there any questions at this point that I can answer?
I've got 2 questions that have come in, and
Okay.
anybody, you're welcome to post any other questions, but one of them is from Kayla. How do you functionally look at pain points, and can you share an example?
Yes. So for example, let's say for myself, I'll use myself as an example. So I'm interested in helping mission-driven organizations reach their audience better, reach their goals with fundraising and volunteers and all these different things. And so I might input into Chat GPT, what are the primary pain points of mission-driven organizations? I may even be more specific than that. So if it's nonprofits that I'm looking to help, or if it's churches or faith-based organizations, I could even be more specific than that and just see what it comes up with. So I know that some of the pain points that I resolve for clients simply have to do with saving them time and saving them money. But let's go with time for now. So they're too busy and their team is stretched, or maybe a very small team, and they don't have enough time. So that's a message that I can communicate in my marketing to get help from Chat GPT. For example, I might say, how can a trained copywriter assist mission-driven organizations in resolving their pain of not having enough time? I'm saying that off the top of my head, so I could probably say it better. But that's an example, and then see what it comes up with. And if the answer, you can always also go back and ask more questions to get it to refine the answer until you've got an answer that you're satisfied with for sharing. Did that answer your question? I think it was Michaela.
Yeah, that was Kayla.
Kayla.
Yep, she says yes.
Okay, awesome.
We have another question here from Dennis, who is asking, what are kind of the best AI tools that can help you repurpose older text to update or summarize? Like, are there particular software tools or online tools?
Yeah, there are so many tools out there now. I started to try to put a list together, and then I thought, I will just share what I have used the most. And then I'm going to recommend some resources at the end that might help you find other tools as well. But I actually use Chat GPT the most, probably. I've also used Perplexity a bit. I tend to use Chat GPT when I want to take a text and break it into other parts, or say take a blog post and make it into social media post. There could be other specific tools that are made for that exact thing. I find that as more and more AI resources are coming into play, there's a lot of them that are trying to meet a specific need. So I don't have a definite answer in terms of here's a specific tool that does that the best. I typically use Chat GPT for that.
We have one other question here. It is from John. Is there any differences in how you would use open or closed AI models? For example, would a closed AI model be better for private information and security?
As far as I understand it, yes. So what I would do before I used any, you definitely don't want to use open models with any private or secure information. That's a definite. I would check with, if you have a specific tool that you're interested in using that is a closed tool, check their privacy the settings and all of that, and see what they do with the data. If you're wanting to input more private data so you can analyze things more, then just check it out before you put anything in there that's private. I hope that's helpful.
I think that's all the questions we have for now.
Okay, so let's talk about next steps. So I have 6 steps that you can take, that you can start now. To again, keep yourself off the ethical edge that we're talking about. So the first thing is to draft an AI policy for your team, for your organization. And you could include the team that we talked about, the legal counsel and the IT personnel and all those folks. You can include that in the policy, but you want to make sure that the policy is robust. It covers ethical and responsible use of AI throughout your organization, with the primary goal of keeping your communication human-centered. And I'm pretty sure someone mentioned that concern earlier. So definitely that should be front and center. And another piece is to always, always, always have a person overseeing anything that's done by AI. So it's not something that you can just let it run on its own. So definitely needs the human factor. And so starting with a policy that you share, that everyone is aware of, is really, really important. And have your, legal counsel also to help you if needed. But that's a place to start. And then number 2 would be to choose your tools. And we were just talking about tools, and there are so many out there. But a good rule of thumb is to just start with 1 or 2, and you learn to use them well. So do some research and see what you think would be best for the needs in your organization. And then just work with those couple of tools. You could consider investing in a premium tool that has more secure options, so that your team can feel more confident about the technology, especially if there is data that you would like to analyze that is a little bit more on the private side. But definitely check into those tools to be sure they are secure before you use them. So main thing for number 2 is to choose 1 or 2 tools for your team to use. Number 3, set clear boundaries for the use of AI by your team. So what will it be used for? What will it not be used for? An ideal would be for your organization to have a shared playbook that has best practices for things like how to craft prompts. What are the ground rules your team should follow? Should they only use AI for editing and revising, or can the staff use it to create a first draft, say, of a letter that's going to go out? So yeah, I'm not going to necessarily tell you these are the boundaries that your organization should have, but you should talk about it and come up with the boundaries that you want in place that will work for you. A good way to think about it is explore the AI tools, then pilot them, then expand them, then integrate them. And that comes from Marketing AI Institute, which I'll point you to them a little bit later as well. So explore what tools you're going to use. Try them out a little bit first. See what's working for your team and what's not. Don't be afraid to adjust the strategy at all. Once you've piloted it and you've found what works well for your team, then you can expand its use and integrate it into your workflows. But it's a really good idea not to use AI at scale without trying it first, a very small, time-constrained way for your organization. So that's all to say, boundaries, boundaries, boundaries on its use. And then number 4 is if you can, you could assign a team member or 2 to be your in-house AI experts. Maybe someone is chomping at the bit to use AI and to learn about it. They could potentially be the people keeping up with all the changes that are happening, because everything is changing so fast. And then your whole team doesn't have to concern itself with keeping up with things, as long as you've got someone assigned to do that. The fifth thing is to be flexible. And again, because things are changing so fast, it's a good idea to be flexible and able to change. Address the fear that people may have as well about AI taking jobs or changing jobs too much. You may even need to redesign jobs so you can incorporate AI into the workflows that can use it for efficiency, and it may free up your staff time. So just be flexible, as this is all so new, and every organization is having to kind of figure out, how is this going to work for us? So so try it, figure out what works, let go of what doesn't. If you have team members who feel uncomfortable using AI, then it's okay to structure a team so they can do the more human tasks, and let the people who are comfortable with AI do the AI stuff. But just flexibility is going to be a key to success in these times. And then the last thing really is to keep your true north, to stay true to your values throughout the process. Never, sacrifice your organization's values for the sake of efficiency or profit. And I feel like I'm preaching to the choir to even say that. But that is really important as things develop and we're learning more about how to use AI. Just don't take your eyes off the true north. And continue sharing the authentic stories that your organization, the impact you guys are making every day. Continue sharing those stories. Your audience is human, so keep your marketing human-centered and values-driven. And those are the 6 next steps that you can take to start incorporating AI. Any other questions at this point?
We have one question from Luke. He's asking, with a team for privacy, legal issues, and compliance, what are some examples of workflow? Maybe an example of producing AI-sourced work. Would all content filter through such teams?
I think I'm not, can you help me put that into a little bit of a simpler, it feels like multiple questions in one.
Yeah, why don't we just start with the team for privacy, legal issues, and compliance? What are examples of workflow?
I think trying to think of something off the top of my head that would be a good example. Is when I think about privacy and legal issues and compliance, it's possible that you would need someone, checking what you're inputting into AI. So I feel like maybe
So maybe like
go ahead.
Like if you're producing like website content
Yep.
for your ministry, who needs to be a part of doing that?
Yeah, so I think it makes me feel like these steps that I've just outlined are kind of the place to start, instead of just jumping to that question. So because it may vary depending on your organization, right? So what does your AI policy say for your organization? So maybe you're to produce website content, maybe your policy says we're going to use it for a first draft. So you have a workflow that says this person is the person that's doing the input and getting the draft ready, but we've got to have a human to edit the draft. Is that same person editing it and making it human and doing all the tweaks to it that they need to do, or is that another person in the organization? So I think it depends on what your organization is going to do with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think maybe if I can just chime in here,
Definitely.
it could be okay. Lucid says that that does make sense, and it could be also that like your legal department or HR team or other people like that that may be more involved in policy making than actual workflow.
Yes, I think
Like
you're
you're
right.
not going to check your website content that's being made by AI through your legal team because that would make
Right.
it inefficient.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great point, Heather. Thank you.
You're
And did
welcome.
that help at all, Luke?
Yeah, I think so. And I think we've answered his other question, would all content filter through such teams? And I think the answer to that is no. It depends on what kind of content it is
Yes.
and what it's
Yes.
going to be used for, and that those groups really their main focus is to help with policy making. Somebody
Yeah.
else had asked, you just had that chart a couple of slides ago. What are the 4 components of that pie chart again in the AI team?
Yeah, the legal counsel, data protection, data management and security, and IT.
Okay, great. I think we've gotten all of our questions thus far.
Okay, great. I'm going to keep going. If you need that slide again, just tell me in the end and then we'll come back. Okay. Oh, actually, before we do, I would like to hear from you guys a little bit. Where is your organization right now? And as you think about these 6 steps, what do you think is your next step? I'd love to hear from you all.
I'm monitoring the chat here. Anything you guys want to post?
Maybe not.
Somebody has said creative communications, use specific AI policy best practices. Somebody says set boundaries with what you'll do with AI content. We're open and interested, but haven't folded in any rhythms.
Okay. Great. So yeah, that sounds like a great place. Sounds like you want to start at the beginning, and that's great. The best time to put those boundaries in place is early on for sure.
Yeah, somebody else has just said we've submitted an AI study to the board of directors who will determine our next steps.
Oh, great. That sounds great too. All right. Oh, did we have one more?
Dennis, we are thinking through some early drafts of content.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. All right. So as we're wrapping up, I want to share a quote from Anne Hanley, who's become one of my favorite experts, and I'm sure some of you are, if not all of you, are familiar with her. She's a very creative writer. She also has a wealth of knowledge about marketing and creating content, and she's doing a good job of communicating about keeping the human element, even with AI, even when using AI. And so I'm really look to her a lot as things are changing. And so I love this quote where she says, good content isn't about good storytelling. It's about telling a true story well. And I just wanted to encourage you all again that your organizations have a lot of great true stories to tell. And so I just want to encourage you to keep telling those true stories authentically. That, as things grow and change and you learn about incorporating AI into your workflows and all of that, not to stray from the true storytelling. That's a foundation for good, effective marketing. And so there are so many resources out there. These are some that I've come to find very reliable. Anne Hanley is one of them. She does a weekly or bi-weekly newsletter that's very useful. Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute has quite a few experts that are constantly putting out information about what's changing, what tools are out there, how to use them, how to stay within ethical boundaries. So I recommend them as a resource as well. And then HubSpot has an AI guide that I found very useful as well. I also put together just a very simple prompt guide. If you're just starting out and would like some help with some prompts, it's very simple. It's just a front and a back page. But feel free to email me and I'll be happy to send that to you. It's got kind of a step-by-step prompt, guide for if you're starting with strategy, and then on the back is some standalone prompts. And so again, I'm Johnson Novara. It's been wonderful to be with you today. Here's all my contact information. Feel free to look for me on LinkedIn too if you network on there, because I'm on there quite a bit. So I'd love to connect with you there. Any remaining questions before I turn it back over to Heather?
Well, let's go ahead and put our cameras on for a minute. We do have a few questions here in the chat panel. One of them is from Adam. He says, is there a way to have accountability on a team on what type of content the team members are creating using AI?
Is there a way to have accountability? Oh, that's a great question. And I think it's, I hate to always throw it back to you, but I think it will definitely be up to you and your team to put that accountability into place, because it is dangerous to think about different team members just in their offices or at home working and just inputting all kinds of stuff into AI. So whether you have a check-in, or some way, I'd hate to say you have to report everything you put into AI, because then that would be a lot of paperwork, but I think there does need to be some kind of process that that protects your team members as well as the information that they're putting in, because they don't want to get, it could be big problems for a team member that puts in information that shouldn't be put in as well. So I think that's an important question for you and your team to decide. What kind of accountability do you want? Do people feel like they can, I feel like it needs to be kind of simple, for people to do it regularly, but maybe it's a simple check-in. I don't know. Heather, do you have thoughts about that?
I would say the same thing. I think getting back to creating a policy is like the foundation. That to me, that sounds like
Yeah.
be familiar with what kinds of tools you want people to use, make some policies about how you want it to be used, and that will kind of answer what the accountability structure will look like. But yeah, I think having everybody report everything that they're using on putting into AI would be like way too difficult and cumbersome. And
Right.
that's the point of using AI anymore.
Right. Then you just made a whole lot more work for yourself.
Yeah. But I mean, you
Yeah.
can make some general principles in a policy, like we don't put any personnel information in AI chatbots.
Right. Yeah. All right.
Anything from a sensitive location doesn't get posted into AI.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Somebody
Yes.
else has asked if there's a link for the HubSpot resource.
I think I meant to have that ready, and I think I just found it. So I'll pop it in the chat as well. Can I make it so everybody can? Yeah.
Yep.
There we go.
Yes. Yep. HubSpot.com/marketing/AI-marketing. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. Is that it?
We have a few other comments that came in after the last time when we were asking people for information about where they were at on AI.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Somebody said, rather than writing a strict policy on AI, we've been educating the organization on what generative AI really is and establish some loose values and parameters. That sounds great. That was from Micah.
Yeah, it does.
Ben says, hire Mia from CoSchedule is a great collaborative AI content tool, primarily for content that is written. What else we've got? We got another question that came in. Could Julie add the link to her prompts handout? Do you have a link to that?
I do not have a link to that. It's a PDF. I don't know if I can drop a PDF here.
You might be able to do that. And your email address is?
Julie@johnsonwriter.com. I can't put that in there real quick.
Okay. I have another question for you.
Okay.
As people are connecting with their leadership about AI and AI tools, I mean, communicators are often right in that space of
Right.
educating their leaders about how the organization should use particular tools. What would you recommend would be good ways that they can talk about the value and usefulness, as well as some of the areas for caution for using generative AI for content creation?
Yeah, I think some of the things I talked about today would be a good place to start, because it is useful, um, and very effective with like the repetitive task or the repurposing or summarizing a lot of content into something smaller. So there's a lot of great use for it that doesn't really, you don't have to worry as much about privacy with those kinds of tasks. And so I think, you know, not ignoring the legal privacy concerns, definitely communicating that as well, but with a positive spin. You could get stuck there. I know some people are kind of stuck there with, oh no, it's just scary. I don't know about all this. And I think we don't have to get stuck there. But acknowledge that there are these issues and we do need to stay within boundaries. But here are some ways we can start. And maybe even, if you have organizational leaders that are a little bit hesitant to start with just the smallest thing, like the repurposing of content, which is relatively safe. If you're already putting out a lot of content, you can just use some of that, a blog post or a newsletter to demonstrate how you can mix it up for other platforms.
Yeah, that sounds good. We don't have any other questions. I want to ask you one more question.
Okay.
What's your favorite tool for transcription? Your favorite AI tool for transcription?
I use otter.ai because I've been using it for a while. It's possible that there are some that are better at this point, but I'm still a fan. Yeah, so that's mine.
Does it take notes during meetings too?
It can. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fantastic. I use rev.com.
Okay. Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And it will provide summaries, which I love. So I'm like,
Yes, right? Yeah.
yes, it'll put it up at the top. You've done it does the whole transcription. It does fairly good even with different accents, and then it puts a summary up at the top. And so when I'm going
Yes,
through my notes, I know exactly what the transcript is about. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I like that. Otter AI will do the summary as well now. And the only thing that's tricky about it is the different, you have to input the people's names who are in the interviews.
Yep.
And occasionally it'll say that I'm someone that I'm like, I don't sound like that person. But
In Rev 2, I've had it like say that I'm more than one person. And I'm
okay.
like,
Yes.
definitely I didn't sound totally different right here.
Right. Exactly. How did you come up with that? But
We do have one more question in here. Do you have any recommendations for photos, art, or graphics AI tools?
I have not had good luck with the photo tools, so I don't at this point. I use Canva a lot for a lot of things graphic, and so they do have some AI stuff there that they've added. But for now, I would have to do some research to see what the latest and greatest photo tools are. Sorry about that, but
Yeah,
I haven't had a lot of good luck with those yet.
yeah, that's great. I use Canva as well. Sometimes use their AI tool, but sometimes it comes up with some really weird
It
things.
doesn't, like, if you try to do people and their hands are all weird and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Well, I think we can wrap up and pull up our